Good morning. We begin today with 1 Samuel, chapters 1 through 3. In 1 Samuel, we have a transition that's going to occur from the Israelites being led by the high priest, by the priests, to the first king, Saul. And, the Israelites basically demand to have a king, and God finally gives in. And so this is the transition that we see in 1 Samuel. As 1 Samuel begins, Eli and his two of his sons, Hophni and Phinehas, are the priests, and he has other sons who are, really scoundrels. And Eli's family is, we'll find out. But there was a certain man named Elkanah who lived out in the hill country of, a descendant of Ephraim. And again, this is kind of the Bethlehem, Ephrathah, that way a little bit. But Elkanah, on a yearly basis, goes to the temple to sacrifice, and he has two wives, Hannah and Peninnah, and Hannah has no children, and she's the one that Elkanah loves. And he says, "Well, aren't I of more importance than 10 sons? Don't you love, aren't I enough?" And I know a lot of women that would just kind of laugh at the expectation that their husband could be enough. But anyway, the one time when they're up there, Hannah is in the temple, and she is praying so fervently and so hard and so with so much emotion. That Eli comes up to her and thinks that she's drunk, and she says, "No, I'm not drunk. I'm just pouring my heart out to the Lord." And Eli, the priest, says to her, "Go, and your petition to the Lord will be granted." And so she got up and she went. And Eli's words, "Go in peace, the God of Israel may grant the petition you have asked or made to him." And she went from this bitterly weeping person, and it says that her countenance was no longer sad. Her face, her demeanor. And may the Lord make his countenance shine upon you. This is the Lord's favor, the Lord's face, the Lord's being. And so her whole being was uplifted because of this conversation with Elkanah and his words of, "May what you have asked God." He doesn't promise. It's, his is kind of a more or less a prayer as well. And sure enough, in due time, it says that Hannah became pregnant. And she doesn't go up to the temple as her son Samuel is young, and she's nursing him. She says, when I have weaned him, I will take him and I will dedicate him, and he will spend his lifetime serving the Lord. And this is what happens when Samuel is weaned, and whether they nursed him for 2 years, 3 years, whatever time span that was. She took Samuel to the temple, to Eli, and she said, "Eli, remember me? I was the woman who wept so bitterly, and this is my son, whom I decided, whom I dedicated, whom I promised the Lord that I would bring to his service." And Samuel then grows up with Eli in the temple and serves Eli and serves God faithfully. And chapter 2 is Hannah's prayer of thanksgiving, and I like the very first verse. Hannah prayed and said, "My heart exalts in the Lord. My strength is exalted in my God. My mouth derides my enemies because I rejoice in my victory." And the other wife of Elkanah had made Hannah's life miserable because she had no sons. She had no children. It was just, and so now Hannah says, "I have children." And as we read on, Hannah, I think, has 3 more sons and 2 daughters. So she has family. She is blessed then with motherhood. But her her prayer of thanksgiving is, the first half of chapter 2. And, then verse 11 says, when Elkanah went home to Ramah, the boy remained to minister to the Lord in the presence of Eli. And then verse 12, we find out that the sons of Eli had no regard for the Lord or for the duties of the priests to the people. So these two sons of Eli that were priests were, the priests by right could eat some of the meat sacrificed and different things, but it was with conditions. And these people were then saying, I want it now. You give it to me now or else. They were threatening the people as to how their sacrifices were offered. And the priests did it was just the greed and the I want it my way attitude. And how often have we seen that, it's the people did what was right in their sight. And this is what Eli's sons did, whatever they wanted, whatever was right in their sight. and we read that part, in those verses 12 through 17. And then verse 18 again, we go back to Samuel was ministering before the Lord, a boy wearing an ephod, a linen ephod, a garment, and every year his mother would bring him a new robe when she would come to the temple, when they would come to offer their sacrifice. And again, it says that Eli would bless Elkanah and his wife, and he says, may the Lord repay you with children for the gift that you have made to the Lord. And so Eli realized as well that, to give this first child, Samuel, that Hannah had, to give him to the Lord, it was, we are to offer the first fruits of the womb, but, this is taking it to the extreme. But, and here's where we see that Hannah had three more sons and two daughters. But it says the boy Samuel grew in the presence of the Lord. And Eli is getting older now, and he knows what his sons have been doing, but he hasn't stepped in and told his sons, this isn't right. This isn't what you should be doing. This is, you're living, Eli hasn't been able to have any positive influence over his sons. Yeah, but Samuel, who is more or less being brought up by Eli, hears the word of the Lord and is faithful to God. And then it says, a man of God comes to Eli and says, I have revealed myself to the family of your ancestors. I chose him the man of God comes and he gives Eli a warning about his family. And then in chapter 3, Samuel is called by God, and he hears his voice. And this is another one of the stories of the Old Testament that most of us are familiar with. When Samuel hears the voice and he runs to Eli and he says, here I am, you called. And Eli says, no, I didn't. And the second time he runs and he hears the voice. And this time, then Eli finally understands that it's God calling Samuel. And he says, next time you hear the voice, you'll go back and lay down. And when you hear the voice again, say, speak, Lord, for your servant is listening. And this happens. And the Lord then talks to Samuel. And Eli calls Samuel in the morning, and Samuel doesn't want to go because of what he has heard about Eli and his sons. But Eli says, don't hide anything from me. Be honest, be truthful, be open, and that is by far so much the best policy for all of us to have, be truthful, be honest. And, and when you tell the truth, it's easy to remember because it's the truth. When you tell a lie, it's so easy to change it. You don't remember the lie as well because it's not factual. So anyway, Samuel is called by God, and we end up, it says Samuel grew up, and the Lord was with him, and let none of his words fall to the ground. And the Lord continued to appear at Shiloh, it says, and the Lord revealed himself to Samuel at Shiloh by the word of the Lord. And that's where we finish up today. Other than to wish Russ Baker a happy birthday. I don't often do that, but Russ has been one that listens faithfully, every day when he can and catches up when he's gone. But I value each and every one of you that tunes in and listens, and may you all have a blessed day.